Firstly, thank you so much, and it feels great to be back in VIT. Of course, I'm from VIT Vellore, but VIT AP, VIT Vellore. It's good to see VIT expanding and going places. So, firstly, thanks so much for the introduction. But unlike a lot of speakers, I'm not I'm not a celebrity. If you look up my social media, you'll barely find any social media presence. But so you can, in that sense, relate to me because I'm just another average student who went about discovering life after graduating from college. And I just thought that I'm going to share a bit of that journey so you can understand what my sort of journey was like. And I really commend the organizers, Sam, the entire team, for actually choosing a theme like diversity, because I think diversity is so very important in the world that we live in today. And when you start realizing the power of diversity, you will start going places, you will start rediscovering yourself as a person. But I'm going to start my journey with Uddeshya. And it predates VIT actually. It goes back to my school days. When I was in school, I lost somebody very, very close in my family. Somebody who was very, very close to me, to basically alcoholism and substance abuse. And when that person passed away, it left a very sort of deep void inside me, right? And I realized, and I started looking into it. I said, why did it happen, right? Why was there nobody around him to actually guide him, to actually counsel him, to actually just talk to him, And it wouldn't have happened if he had somebody to just be there with him. And that really sort of changed my perspective, and I was a very inquisitive person, so I started going around in school. I'm actually telling you about when I was probably in class 8, this class 8. Class 8, I started going around and asking students around me, do you know about the harms of substance abuse? Do you know about sex education? Do you know about substance abuse? Do you know about peer pressure? Do you know about bullying? Nobody had a clue. And the other thing that I realized was that the problem also was that whenever we have these counselors, they tend to be people who are older than you are, right? So you're expected to go to somebody who's much older than you are and talk about your problems, and you hesitate. Today, if you've got something personal that you'd like to share, there is the highest chance that you're going to go share it with a friend. You're going to go share it with a friend, as opposed to sharing it with, like somebody who's your parent probably, somebody who's a counselor probably, So I just realized that that was such a beautiful model. So in my school, I started organizing student-led counseling sessions. So you could actually go share your problems, share things, take advice of actually young people who are just like you, people who are just like me. And that model actually became so successful that it was actually replicated across all the schools which belong to the same school group that I came from, right? So it started in my school and it started going around to different DPSs from that. And that became such a successful model of students talking to students, counseling students about peer pressure, bullying, substance abuse, right? So that was a challenge which I sort of used as an opportunity to drive change in my own school. The next thing that happens is I come to VIT for electrical engineering. So I go to VIT Vellore to basically do my electrical engineering. And while I'm there, right, the beauty about VIT Vellore and even VIT AP or any of these campuses is the fact that there is enormous amount of diversity, right? You've got people from different parts of the countries who are coming together. You've got people from all across India coming together, different states, different languages, different cultures, right? And when I went to VIT, I actually started asking people that, this was something that I did in school. This was something that was my perception of how school kids are, how they're unaware about these things around them. Is it the case here as well? And I was surprised because you have people who are 18 years old, 19 years old, who have no idea about these things. Because these things were never discussed in their schools, right? So I said, how do we change this? Right? So I started getting together a group of people, random people. I still remember the first meeting that I had was in this outdoor place in VIT Vellore, which was called Foodies. And I said that, can we do something about this? And it was amazing because we had 7 or 8 people. One of them was from Northeast, somebody was from Kerala, somebody was from Delhi, somebody was from Vellore. And people actually said, I don't think we're going to be able to do this over here because, you know what, Vellore is a very conservative place. I don't think we can even have these conversations over here. And, that is where the problem begins. The problem begins when you start assuming that there is a challenge that you actually cannot overcome, right? And what we started doing was that we started slowly expanding. We started doing outdoor campaigns. From outdoor campaigns, we started going to classrooms. We established ourselves as a student club. Ultimately, from a student club, we ended up becoming an NGO, right? And there were people who actually said, oh, you're not going to get support from the VIT management. Forget getting support. Dr. G. Vishwanathan was the Chancellor of VIT University. He ended up becoming a mentor of my NGO, right? For the first time, you had students going to students. There's a university core course which is called Ethics and Values, right? So for the first time, imagine the change from 5 to 6 people. We now had a team of almost 180 people on campus. And it was for the first time that students were going and conducting classes for students in ethics and values, where they were talking about sexual abuse, substance abuse, peer pressure, bullying. We started, and the chancellor, the university management, they were so happy. They were like, the results are fantastic. Why don't you start doing the orientation session for all freshers? So every single year, we were responsible for all those 10 or 15,000 students that came in on actually training them in terms of what actually lies ahead. So that was the change. So from these 5 or 6 people, the power of diversity is such that when these 5 or 6 people left VIT, they went back to their own home states across the country, right? And they started setting up chapters there. So in 2010, from 5 odd people, 6 odd people, we today probably have 3,000 volunteers across India. And every single year, we impact 30,000 lives. That was the impact that we were able to make. And a lot of that I attribute to diversity because we had people who came to us from all parts of the country. Right? And then once the VIT phase got over, I started working in management consulting. I went into strategy consulting. And within probably 2 years of my job, I got super bored. It was a great job, strategy consulting, so it wasn't like I was going into those mass placements. I never sat down for mass placements. I just went, I got into strategy consulting. And over there, I started working. And it was interesting work. I basically even made the business model for India's first private airport when I was there in management consulting. But it just was boring because you don't have that feeling of being able to make an impact. Sure, you've developed the business model for the world's private airport, but at the end of the day, you're basically profiting that group, right? I mean, what is the change that you've been able to drive? So it never gave me that satisfaction. So I continued working, with Udesha. I continued spending time over there. And then ultimately one fine day, I was just like, you know what? I can't deal with this anymore. I quit. Right? So I just resigned from my job. 2 years, strategy consulting, prime job, just resigned from it. And I was just sitting at home one day, and the reason why I'm telling you this is because this is how life is. It's about constant journey, it's about constant experimentation, it's constantly doing new things. So one day I was just sitting in my room, basically doing nothing, having Diet Coke, sitting in front of my laptop. My mom walks up to me, she's like, what the hell are you doing in life? I was like, nothing, I'm just sitting at home. She's like, why don't you do something? I was like, do what? She said, do a master's. I said, okay. So I just randomly looked up my laptop and looked which master's courses were open. But it was basically that time of the year when most of the admissions are closed. The only place which was open was London School of Economics because they basically have rolling admissions that are going on. So I applied, and in 2 months I got my acceptance, right? So my problem was that I was not able to make the kind of an impact that I was making in Uddesha at KPMG because it did not give me the work satisfaction, which is why I continued working, with my NGO. And then I sort of discover a completely new field, which is policy. I go to LSE. LSE is actually known for its diversity, right? Because if you think that in Vellore and AP, you've got people from all parts of India coming, in London, you've got people from all parts of the world coming in. So suddenly, I was part of a cohort, right? I was in a cohort of almost 80 people in my course, which came from 53 different nationalities. That is crazy. So each of them came with a very different perception of life. Each of them came with a very different experience. Somebody was a doctor on the field. Somebody was a policy maker. Somebody was was working in the White House. So suddenly you've got this amazing set of people. And what happens there is that you also had a lot of societies. So just like Vellore, you've got a lot of clubs, you've got a lot of societies. So one day I just went to the India Society and I said that I would like to become a member of the India Society. So they said, okay, what's your experience? What have you done in the past and some stuff? And they were like, okay, what are your ideas? I said, I think, you have an India society, you have a Pakistan society, you've got a Nepal society, you've got all these societies which are just like for the members of those countries. Why don't you guys actually get together and do something interesting? And they didn't actually like that. So they said that, we reject this membership request. I was like, okay, great. So what I ended up doing was, I ended up starting the South Asia Development Society. Right? So India Society said no. India Society said, I'm not going to do events with anybody else. So I ended up setting up the South Asia Development Society. So now, what we ended up doing was that we started having people not just from India, but you had people from Pakistan, you had people from Sri Lanka, you had people from Myanmar, you had people from Bhutan, you had people from Nepal. Because what we discussed was that today, there are problems which transcend boundaries, right? Poverty is a problem which transcends boundaries, right? Culture is something that transcends boundaries, right? Human trafficking, drugs, all these are things which transcend boundaries. Water scarcity, food, hunger, these problems do not have boundaries. So we wanted to get people together on a common development-oriented platform. And that's what we did. So in the 100+ years, or people have told me that in 150 years, people have tried to get a South Asia Development Society at the London School of Economics. People were not able to do that. But my team and I, purely because of this diversity, purely because we were composed of a bunch of people with the different mindsets, different opinions, we actually ended up having the South Asia Development Society. We went on to organize UK's first ever South Asia Development Conference, interestingly, which was inaugurated by one Nobel laureate from India, one Nobel laureate from Pakistan. And that sent out the most powerful message of unity. And all these societies, India Society, Nepal Society, they had no option but to actually come and sit in the audience, right? So we went from there to there. And once LSE got over, then I come back to India. I joined Niti Aayog, Government of India. So for those of you who don't know what Niti Aayog is basically India's apex policy institution. It basically serves essentially as India's Ministry of Planning, and it is basically headed by the Prime Minister. So I come to India, I join Niti Aayog. So what I'm also trying to say is that, look at the journey. So engineering, NGO, management consulting, public policy, then come into the government. When I came into the government, it gave me immense satisfaction because I started feeling that the work that I was doing was actually, again, just like Uddeshya, having an impact at the ground level, having an impact at the grassroots. But one thing which I keep telling you is, or which I would want to keep telling you, is that in every challenge, there's an opportunity, right? So somebody passing away in my family was a challenge, but it was an opportunity for me to try and make a change by starting with Uddeshya. KPMG, the challenge for me was that I was not liking the work, but the opportunity was that by making a decision to quit KPMG, I ended up going to LSE. At LSE, the challenge was that people from different countries didn't want to get together. That was an opportunity for me to create a new goddamn society over there, which brought all these countries together. And then I come to the government. Now, when I come to the government, I started working in the field of climate change, in the field of transport decarbonization. We ended up doing like a hell lot of projects. Interestingly, one of the most amazing things that we've done is we've created this emissions modeling tool. So some of you are engineers, some of you are going to understand this. For the first time ever, we have a tool within the government of India, and the design of this tool, I led basically this entire effort, that if you think that tomorrow I'm going to enact a policy X or a policy Y or a policy Z in the field of transport or any other field, you put it into this model, and this model is actually able to calculate how much of emissions are you going to save, how does that feed into your COP26 commitments, how does that feed into your NDC targets, your nationally determined contributions target. So this was immensely satisfying. But then again comes the challenging part, right? So I was basically due for a promotion, or I was basically eligible for a higher position, but somebody within the organization, they actually unilaterally changed the criteria. So I got excluded from it, right? And a lot of people said, don't flag this, don't flag this. And generally, these environments, they're a bit sort of sensitive, because if you try to raise these issues, it becomes problematic. So what did I do? I basically walked into the office of the CEO, who I didn't know at that time, by the way, the chief executive officer. I walked into his office and I said that, I think this is wrong. And this is wrong, and I think I will leave, because you cannot unilaterally change the criteria, because it's not just affecting me, it'll have affected hundreds of people on the outside. So people discouraged me from doing that, but you always have to try, right? And when I did that, it completely changed the dynamics, because not only was the criteria revised again to be fair all over again, but this man, he started trusting me. And the name of this man is Amitabh Kant, who was the chief executive officer of Niti Aayog, and this guy ended up becoming my mentor. And if you think our journeys are inspiring, Amitabh Kant, he was posted in Kerala. He basically, I think, locked horns with the communist government over there. He was not given a posting. He was not given a posting for many years. So this guy did not have a posting. What did he do? He used that challenge as an opportunity, because when finally he was given a posting, he was made the tourism secretary of Kerala. I'm talking about days when there was barely any tourism in Kerala, and the Kerala tourism secretary was considered to be a lousy posting. You know what he did? He basically started Kerala God's Own Country campaign. That was him. Right? He got noticed by the government of India. He was brought to the central government. When he came to the center, our parliament was attacked. The World Trade Center attacks happened. Tourism was at an all-time low. Right? We had a 10% vacancy. This guy, he drove the Incredible India campaign in the middle of that. So Incredible India campaign was also his. He drove the Incredible India campaign, and that completely transformed tourism in India. Startup India, Make in India. All of this is his. Digital payments, unified payments interface. He's like one of the masterminds of unified payments interface. Then when he became CEO Niti Aayog, he drove the production-linked incentive schemes. He transformed 113 districts, which are now called the aspirational districts. He completely transformed these districts. And the Prime Minister actually trusted him so much that after he retired from Niti Aayog, he was made the head of the G20 Secretariat now. And as you know, that India holds the G20 presidency. And so after Niti, I then moved with him to G20, right? So that is the kind of impact that you can make if you have the vision. And his vision was that I need to use challenge as an opportunity. And to an extent, that is what I have started believing in very strongly as well. But when we talk about diversity, let me just tell you one thing, because we're running out of time. I think that it's very important for people to be surrounded not always by like-minded people, but by people who have different opinions than yours. People who can question you. People who can tell you that, no, I think you're wrong. Maybe this is the right way. That is actually the power of diversity, because that just changes so much more. And when I started appreciating, because every single thing that's happened in my sort of insignificant life has been in some way or the other a result of diversity, right? And so that has become something that I'm very, very sort of attached to, which is why when I said the theme is diversity, within a second I told Sam that no, yes, let's absolutely talk about this. So diversity is a beautiful concept, and what diversity also did for me is that it also pushed me into starting to discover sort of new people. I took to mountaineering, so I do a lot of trekking, I do a lot of mountaineering. I just came back from Nepal, I just did Annapurna in Nepal, and it's such a beautiful thing, because you're again surrounded by a bunch of complete strangers, people who come from different parts of the world, all to scale mountains, right? So somebody comes from a different background, another comes from a different background, somebody comes from another country. I've met people from Iran, I've met people from Iraq, I've met people from Syria, I've met people from Netherlands, US, UK, all people who are complete random strangers. And it is with these, and that's what I'm trying to tell you, is that when you discover new people, when you discover new thoughts about life which you had not thought of, you also in the process start discovering yourself. So when you try and discover diversity, when you try and meet new people, you also in that process keep discovering yourself. Which is why I say that it is very important to take risks in life. It is good to have like a single-minded focus that yes, I absolutely want to do this and I absolutely want to achieve this. But you know what? If that always remains your focus, then you will stop experimenting with new things. And life is this constant journey of learning, right? Every day is a new learning experience. Every single day you learn something new. Today, so many people are going to come up on stage and they're going to speak to you. And you're going to learn something new. And you might just discover that that is something that you always wanted to do. Therefore, while it's very good to have a fixed mindset in life, a fixed goal in life, it is also very, very important to take things as you move, to learn new things, to meet new people, to discover new cultures, to discover new languages, to discover new thoughts, to try out new jobs, get bored of those jobs, move on to new jobs, do something of your own, do something of your own again, and keep doing it. So it's good to look for inspiration outside, but look for inspiration within yourselves. I think the most important part of life is that you also need to start taking inspiration from yourself and inspiration of the risks that you can take in life. So what you guys need to do is that you need to be your own heroes. You need to be your own sheroes. The world isn't binary anymore. You need to be your own champions, right? So that is all that I would say. Be your own champion and drive change as much as you can. Thank you so much.